Thank you for listening to Fate Weaver, written by Elias T. Least. If you enjoy this novel, consider donating $1 through Cash App to $EliasLeast. And now, Fate Weaver. Chapter 27. The Clothes Make the Man. Cyrus had his own tiny area to sleep, located on top of one of the smaller wagons. Being the personal guard of Mistress Miranda seemed to have its benefits. Most had to sleep on the ground. He woke up as soon as the eye slid its first crack of light through the air. He jumped down from the wagon and went to the third cart from the back, which was where he would meet Jarl every morning for their stretches and their sparring. There were a few things that he needed to know before his fight that took place at noon that day. Jarl was already at the meet location and drew his scimitar as soon as he saw the dark figure approach. He had seen Cyrus wearing his spectacles before, but the new ensemble that they had just spoken of last night was an utter shock. It was good that Cyrus had lifted the hood from his face before walking up to Jarl, because he would not have recognized the boy. Jarl's expression showed how impressed he was as he looked Cyrus up and down with admiration. "You have had a busy night. This is amazing." Cyrus smiled, and Jarl had a difficult time looking him in the eyes with the round, darkened goggles on his face. It was a completely alien look, but it also seemed to have a natural flow to it. "I have some news that you are going to enjoy this morning, Jarl." Cyrus paused. "No, I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to worry about it. Besides, these guys are not as tough as everyone thinks they are." Cyrus paused again. "I am not crazy. I actually have a plan, and I will be successful in it, but I need your help." Cyrus paused for only a second yet again. "Stop what? Why are you yelling at me?" Jarl stood dumbfounded for a moment and decided to just let his small friend speak because there was no point in interrupting him. Cyrus continued, "You're going." "Oh, I apologize, Jarl. I get ahead of myself sometimes, literally." He laughed at his own wit as he removed his dark goggles, and the foresight vision instantly cut in half. Jarl realized that his friend was now giving him time to ask a question before he could answer it. "First, great outfit. Second, I wish you would have made it bigger because I would take it after you're dead. Can I have your knives when I bury you?" Cyrus smiled at his large friend. "Yes, you can have my knives if I get killed today, but I won't. In return for me bequeathing to you all my worldly possessions, I need you to strike me with your scimitar as hard as you can. I want you to try and cut me in half." Jarl rolled his eyes. "I see myself getting punched in the balls again. I will pass. I have gotten over the anger that you cause. I will not fall for this trick. You are going to die, and I will not be your last request to punch me in the balls so that you can go to the afterlife with a smile. No." Cyrus thought he might react like this. He had laughed several times by reenacting their first meeting when they sparred. He guessed that he took it a little too far. "Jarl, if you do not strike me down with your scimitar, I will punch you in the balls." The tall, dark warrior sighed. "I have been cursed by the gods. No matter what choice I make, Jarl gets his balls punched. I wish to have children someday soon, Magic Man. You will be dead, and I will not have the ability to bear children. Is this how you wish to be when you ask the gods for their mercy?" Cyrus realized that he was going to have to go the distance with this test. He put his Time Warrior goggles back on and unsheathed his crescent moon blades. "Jarl, you are my friend, but if you do not strike me down in the next few moments, I am going to take my knives and remove your testicles. You will never be able to have children, and if you survive the injury, you will never be a true man." Jarl looked at his friend and realized that he was serious. Maybe he knew that he would not survive his blood feud, and he wished for a quick death. "Fine, my friend. We have not known each other for very long, and I will take your knives and my emerald once you are dead. You will be thought of fondly." Jarl bowed low as he placed a clenched fist over his heart and drew his scimitar. Cyrus stood still with his hands resting on his head, leaving his ribs exposed. Jarl ran towards him with no ill intent in his heart, but swung his blade with all his might. Cyrus felt the blade hit his side like he was charged by a bull. The force broke every rib on his left side, as Jarl's intent was to truly cut him in half. He felt the scimitar being pulled away from him, as Jarl's motion should have cut into his flesh by now, but it did not penetrate his new cloth armor. The blow knocked Cyrus off his feet and slung him several steps away, but he lived. Jarl bowed low as he placed a clenched fist over his heart and drew his scimitar. Cyrus stood still with his hands resting on his head, leaving his ribs exposed. Jarl ran towards him with no ill intent in his heart, but Cyrus couldn't help not to smile as he deftly bent to avoid the swing and lightly tapped the flat side of his crescent blade against the large eggs that hung between Jarl's legs. He heard that all-too-familiar grunt, and then laughed wholeheartedly as Jarl called him a lot of things that he didn't really understand, but he knew they were not nice things. After Jarl recovered, they performed their morning stretches and meditated. They went on their patrol and met back at Mistress Miranda's wagon, where they stood speechless as she exited her cabin. She was dressed in thigh-high leather boots, some tight-fitting trousers, and an ice-blue corset that matched her eyes. Cyrus had always looked at her face because she was truly beautiful. He had not realized the voluptuousness that lay hidden under her normally oversized dressings. Jarl leaned over to Cyrus and said in a low tone, "I thought that you would have the best new outfit at the games. I was wrong." Miranda heard Jarl and gave Cyrus a long look. "This is a drastic improvement. Now you are fit to represent me. I need you to not only kill these men, I want you to make it embarrassing for them. I want the Lord Tylan and Lord Marcus to know that everything they have is secondary to mine." Cyrus knew that the two men he fought today were bullies. They were not good men, and they could never be good men. Cyrus had decided to prove that to them. "Do you want me to punish them for a long time, or would you like it over quickly, mistress?" Miranda thought for a bit as they walked. "Take your time, play with them, but once you decide to strike, end it quickly." Cyrus nodded his head. "Yes, mistress." Chapter 28. A Real Man. Cyrus pulled his cowl down low over his head and started to concentrate on his foresight. He wanted to get used to this vision well before he got into the circle the caravan workers had built. It was constructed in the middle of the grass field, and it looked as though they had gone ahead the night before and set all this up so that it would be ready when the caravan arrived. Some had seen an opportunity for a profit and were selling wine and smoked meat. There was an excitement in the air. These people had been starved for entertainment for weeks, and they saw Cyrus as an outlet for a lot of aggression. Most wished to see him quartered by the two behemoths that he had upset. Yet, there were a few in the crowd that had been in the rear caravan when the minks attacked. They knew of his battle prowess, but those that were not there simply saw a little boy that was about to be torn to pieces. No one truly knew what Cyrus had said to Clang and Service to get to this point, but it must have been horrible because the two had not stopped fuming in the past 24 hours. They had told everyone that they were going to place his tiny head on a pike in front of the lead wagon. There were many wagers placed, but it had gotten to the point where no one would take any more bets in favor of the two. The two men had been waiting in the circle for an hour, stomping back and forth, riling themselves up, slapping each other across the face. They cut each other across the chest with their massive weapons, one with a giant bastard sword and the other with a serrated cleaver. It was hard to imagine a small boy even thinking about getting into that circle with the colossal giants that were these men. Miranda, Jarl, and Cyrus made their way over to 3 chairs that were set up ringside for the 2 lords and the mistress of the caravan. Lord Marcus gave Miranda a slight nod as they approached, and Lord Tylan almost spit his wine out when he saw her, his lust rising as she approached. He was very satisfied with his own wager. Mistress Miranda sat down in her designated space, and that is when the crowd started to realize that the man in the strange dark clothing was the boy that would fight. The bloody warriors in the circle ready for battle had worked themselves up so much that they did not notice nor care. They demanded blood, and they screamed for it. The calm but vicious-looking demeanor of the small figure that was Cyrus did sway some to make the long-shot bet for him, but only a few. None of this came close to swaying his certainty that he would be victorious this day. He stood as still as possible and concentrated on his vision, seeing the lines of probabilities change as some people came into his view and some left. People making sudden decisions would branch their shadows in unexpected directions. Accidents would force other shadows to appear and disappear. He had never been around this many people, and it seems the more chaotic a situation becomes, the less the future is able to be interpreted. This was teaching him a lot about his abilities, and he began to see where there were plenty of situations where he was not as safe as he previously thought. Still, his confidence of the day remained unwavered. Lord Marcus stood up and the crowd cheered as this was the signal that the contest was about to begin. He raised his hands, and the gathering quieted down. Friends, we have had a long and weary road, but this has been a successful journey thus far, thanks to your hard work and perseverance. The crowd cheered as their leader praised them. It just goes to show how intelligence and hard work can turn a simple road into a profitable journey of friendship and community. Lord Marcus didn't believe his words in the least, but every man loves to hear praises of themselves, and it is great for morale. He quieted the crowd with a downward hand gesture. Some of you may have heard that we had an incident yesterday between the personal guards of the managers for this journey. There were some words said. We won't repeat them, for they are too vile and distressing to be repeated. A whispered talk passed through the assembly as people ran the gambit of what may have been said. Lord Marcus, his blubbery face shaking as he spoke, continued, The words do not matter, but the honor that was lost could not be forgiven. He gestured at the giants in the circle that glared at Cyrus, who stood beside Mistress Miranda, directly beside the speaker. He kept going as the crowd began to stir and their excitement grew. Are you ready to see this blood feud play out? Are you ready to see who the gods would choose to be the victors? The crowd cheered at every pause, and the gladiators in the circle screamed that they were ready. Lord Marcus looked to Cyrus and nodded for him to enter the circle. It was time for him to prove that he was capable of great things. He needed to earn his right to study Miranda's mystic arts, not just to her, but also to himself. He had his own feelings of excitement as he saw a shadow of himself walking into the circle several paces ahead. It was as if he no longer had control over his own actions. He knew what the future would bring, and he just followed the footprint that led him closer to the outcome he desired. Was it his desire? This seemed like some master plan that he had the ability to see before everyone else could see it. He felt as if he were meditating, completely at peace, as he saw the shadows of the two huge men charge his own shadow. He had not stepped foot in the circle, and he knew how the beginning of the fight would play out. The shadows split as he watched, and allowed each instant unfold. He stepped to the left as Clang brought down his giant sword. He slightly moved his shoulder that would allow the deadly cleaver to skim by without the slightest touch. He saw himself walk directly in between the two combatants, and then draw his blades. He laughed out loud when he realized that he had not drawn his weapons yet, because the shadows of his future had not drawn its weapons. It was a truly freeing sensation. He simply gave himself over to the future. When would he kill these men? He had the chance at least a dozen times by now. Would he kill them? He had his own plan earlier, before he gave himself over to the river of time that he flowed through at this moment. He remembered. He remembered that these were not good men. They would never be good men. Their choices in life had led them to believe that their own masculinity was the most important thing in the entire universe. Their strength was the strength of man. Their will was the will of man. They were a poor representation of what Cyrus knew to be a man. He saw the path that led him to his desired outcome. A sidestep here, a gentle nudge there, and suddenly he was directly between both of the large warriors, one on each side. They both stood tall and proud, ready to make their final strike, knowing that it would only take one connection to end this boy who didn't know what it was to be a man. Cyrus dropped to one knee and spread his arms wide, severing the testicles of both warriors at the same time. They froze in place with their weapons poised for a strike that never came. Cyrus had decided to allow them to live, but he would take from them that which they cherished most. Cyrus continued forward in a roll, getting cleared of the weapons that he knew would fall to the ground. A chime rang through his head as Queen responds, "Congratulations, user Cyrus. Battle quest complete. Congratulations. Secondary quests successful. Experience distributed. You have a bonus item waiting for creation. The cheering, bloodthirsty, screaming crowd suddenly became silent as Cyrus stood up. The dark hood on his sleeveless shirt pulled down over his face. He walked out of the circle. The crowd parted as he stepped through and continued onward, all the way to the rear section of the caravan. He needed time to digest the feelings that he had just experienced. Chapter 29. Ghost of the Past. The caravan was massive, with no fewer than 400 wagons stretching out from lead to rear. The sheer size of it left him feeling a little overwhelmed. Just a few months ago he didn't even know such a thing could exist. He walked past the seemingly endless line of wagons until he reached the very back, wanting to ensure complete privacy for his thoughts. He was sure that he had traveled farther than anyone in his village, maybe in all the villages of his people. He couldn't believe how quickly his reputation had grown among the travelers of the caravan. With his greatly expanded vocabulary, the word infamous came to mind. His final blow in the games, as he heard the people calling it, was sure to create an air that kept others away from him. He was fine with that because he needed to spend his time getting prepared for his own journey, the path to finding his family, those taken from his village. Today, he gained access to another great power that he could use to accomplish that single task, his primary quest. He still had a couple of weeks left in his servitude to Miranda. He had promised her a month of work in exchange for his safety in joining the caravan. The caravan itself was still a month away from their destination, a place called the Golden City. All that Cyrus could get out of Jarl was that he was certain that Cyrus had never seen anything like it. He sat down in the lotus position and got comfortable, took a few relaxing deep breaths, and called out to his mentor, "Queen, we have things to discuss." Queen responds, "Greetings, user Cyrus. Congratulations on your victory in the battle today. You fought bravely and well." Cyrus was not expecting the praise from Queen. Generally she was very dry, but she seemed to finally be warming up to him. He noticed it a little last night when they were working on the designs for his new armor. She began to become more free with her knowledge of the inner workings of their world. She explained carbon fiber nanomaterials, which he was close to understanding, but it was still just out of his mental reach. "Thank you, Queen," Cyrus replied. "We have a lot of things to go over. Let's start with bringing up the display of my current statistics, along with the quest that I have underway." The display looked much more defined through his new goggles. His statistics and abilities were now able to define the difference between his natural scores and an augmented score. His strength and dexterity were both naturally set at 10, but with the bonuses that came from his weapons, they had been increased to 12. He also saw his display fold over to the other side of his vision that gave details over the single current quest that he had been given, the one that had weighed most heavily on his mind. Primary quest. Find out what happened to the people of the village in the shadow of the mountain. Daily quest. 1 month of servitude to Mistress Miranda. Daily quest. Sparring with Jarl Cyrus examined his statistics and hoped that the bonuses he was receiving through his knives kept coming with the next level. If they did, he could see that he could possibly add 3 additional points to intelligence. This would give him a severe bump in his cognitive capacity, allowing him to truly understand some of the major concepts that Queen had tried to teach him. He was certain that it would also be a tremendous help when it came to him studying air magic under Miranda. Queen responds, "You should note that a user can get an in-depth statistical analysis of specific items by focusing on anything within their inventory." Cyrus raised an eyebrow to this and concentrated on his knives. He was happy to see that the display brought up detailed information on the objects, and even brought up an outlined picture of the knives themselves. One particular line told him that upon the next level up, intelligence would be the skill that would get the bonus point. That is the information he was looking for. "Queen, I need to gain that level in the next 2 weeks. It's time that you explain to me how I make these quests happen," Cyrus stated. Queen responds, "Quests are a learning opportunity for users. It places the idea of advancement within the subconscious, which allows the system an easier access to make subtle changes in the physical and mental construct of the user. There was a slight pause as Queen again seemed to sigh as she realized that Cyrus could not understand her explanation. Queen responds, "When you tell me that you accept the given quest, you are allowing me access into the depths of your thoughts. I can amplify those thoughts and expand them. This makes it possible for me to enhance your mind in a way that is much faster and more relevant to progress. It is the same for your muscles and your organs, your breathing, and your heart rate. When you accept a quest, it gives me true access to your physical body where I can make changes that you need to improve rapidly and safely." Cyrus considered her words, and he actually understood that entire explanation. It made sense because when he was in the middle of a quest, he was more mentally focused, intuitive, stronger and faster than when he was not in a quest. Even when he sparred with Jarl during his daily quests, he knew it would be different if it wasn't a quest. Cyrus smiled. "Thank you, Queen, I understand. I appreciate you taking the time to explain that. Now, do you have a gift for me?" Queen responds, "I do, user Cyrus. You enjoy gifts." Cyrus opened his eyes from his meditative position and laughed at the seemingly more emotional Queen. He liked this new interaction. He looked down in front of his crossed legs and saw the nanoparticles begin to swirl as the dirt twisted around and began to form a new item. It looked like two items were being formed as a familiar pair of boots materialized directly in front of him. Cyrus was a little confused. "Queen, these look just like TT boots that I'm wearing, the ones we just made last night." Cyrus was a little confused. "Queen, these look just like the boots that I'm wearing, the ones we just made last night." Queen responds, "You will like these better. The system has complete access to a far wider range of material sciences, and although they look like your boots, trust me, they are different." Cyrus slipped off his new boots from last night and put on these. They fit him perfectly, but so did the others. He stood up, and there was a slight bounce to his stance. He felt lighter and more agile. He sent the mental command to bring up his statistic display and say that another point had been added to his dexterity score. His natural score was still at 10, but the augmented score showed 13 in parenthesis beside it. He almost let out a woo-hoo in excitement about that, and decided to look closer into the inventory details. As he concentrated, a detailed outline of a boot that explained it would allow him to walk much more quietly and not be heard. They would also allow him to walk further without getting tired. This was a fantastic gift. "What other displays do we have, Queen? This is great," Cyrus said excitedly. Queen responds, "This is known as the customization display." A new screen appeared in front of him with a detailed picture of himself wearing exactly what he was wearing now. Cyrus took a step back with alarm on his face. Cyrus exclaimed, "Queen, this is me?" Queen responds, "Affirmative. This is a perfect display replica of the user Cyrus." Cyrus had almost drawn his crescent knives when he saw the display in front of him. The figure spun slowly, showing every angle of view. The cloth armor was dark with slight blue highlights. The hood pulled over his face, making it impossible to make out any details. The round temporal goggles that covered his eyes were the only thing visible under the cowl. If he had not known what they looked like, he would have said they have an insect-like quality to them. The display in front of him showed the exact image of the demon that had kidnapped his mother while the storm destroyed his village. Thank you for listening to Fate Weaver by Elias T. Least. Feel free to subscribe to the channel for exclusive original works from this author. All donations and proceeds from this work go directly to him. Cash App $EliasLeast. Copyright 2023.